welcome back. Hope all of you are doing super well. And I know it's been some time, so I'm happy to get back with again some information that's helpful for you. So, in this video, I'll be giving you some information on the types of prototypes, and this information is again from the book Inspired by Marty Kagan. I have been reading this recently, and this is really interesting and amazing. And I recommend, even if you can, do read the book. So, to get into this, we tend to build prototypes, but most of the time we really don't know when to use what type of prototype. So that's with that in mind, like I thought, we as even business analyst or whoever you might be, you should be knowing what type of a prototype to build in which scenario. So that's what we're going to see. So let's get into it. So if I ask you, what is a prototype? Think for yourself, what according to you is a prototype? So you might have, answers like it's a low fidelity wireframe, which is like pencil and paper, or it's a high fidelity UI, or it's mock screens, which has only the front end and no back end. It doesn't store data, things like that. And if you ask me which is the right answer, everything is the right answer because all these are indirectly a prototype. So on a high level, there are few types of prototypes, around like 3 if you want to group them, and that's what we are going to see. The very first one is feasibility prototypes. So generally these prototypes are built or done by engineers, by the techies. Okay, so it's used to check the technical feasibility. So imagine there's a scenario where you have this idea and you want to check out whether technically it's feasible. Maybe it's a super great big bang idea, but you have to check if it's technically feasible, and that's where teams can use this feasibility prototype. It usually consists of few lines of code to validate. Okay, for example, let's say that there was a time when we had to kind of include so many members into a team, and it was an unusual count. So that was the requirement. So we thought of, before you even get into building that team and all the other features around team management, we wanted to check and see whether the system will be able to handle so many members in the team. Okay, because there were certain licenses that need to be issued for the team, and there was a lot of complexities. So we wanted to check the performance. So before you even get into building the UI or do anything, the technical team had to check some scenarios and some cases as to whether it's technically feasible. They wanted to check the performance. Similarly, there might be chances when the customer or client asks for certain information to be displayed in the UI. But only when you're able to fetch or retrieve that data, you would be able to display it. So there are times when, before you even building these fancy UIs with the information, you first want to check whether that information can be retrieved and displayed. So these are scenarios where you can build feasibility prototypes, which is usually just few lines of code, and you don't even do any mock-ups, you don't do any pencil and paper, pen and paper, wireframes, nothing. This would be done by the technical folks. The next type of prototype is user prototypes. So user prototypes, these are used for simulations, okay? And these can range from low fidelity, which is pencil and paper wireframes, to high fidelity, which is user interfaces. So it's mainly used to validate the user experience. Now you have this very good idea for a particular problem, but you first want to validate whether really it's usable, whether people have a good experience with what you're trying to provide. So even before developing that, you want to give it out, you want the users to get a look and feel of how they're going to experience working with that software or with that product. So at that time, if that's the case, and if you want to validate the user experience, the user behaviors, then you can go in for user prototypes. And it's up to you whether you want to go with low fidelity ones or high fidelity ones. Okay, so it generally you can first go with low fidelity, but depending on what is the use case and what you want to validate, then you can go for high fidelity prototypes. So this is the second type of prototype. The third one is live data prototypes. So this is a little more advanced version where the prototype is usually built to collect live data and also to send live traffic. Okay, so let's imagine that the user wants to be able to work with some mock-up, okay, with some mock-up prototype where they'll be at least able to see some live data coming in, and they would experience the traffic that's trying to come in, things like that. Then you can go in for live data prototypes. Okay, and it is used to check if an idea or feature etc really works as intended. So there are some cases where you really want to check the performance with live data, and at that time maybe sometimes you would just check it with mock data and it works fine. But when live data comes streaming in, you would want to check and see whether the system is capable of handling that stream of data, and that's where you can go in for live data prototypes. Okay, so now please get this very straight and don't get confused that live data prototypes are MVPs. Live data prototypes are way lesser of an effort. It takes very less effort, time and cost when compared to an MVP. So MVPs are also, you how to build MVPs, but don't end up building these live data prototypes as if you're building an MVP. It always has to be very minimalistic, where it just validates the use case that you're trying to check out. Okay, so that's about live data prototypes. And the last one is hybrid prototypes. So these hybrid prototypes are nothing but combination of other prototypes. So let's say, for example, you want to test the feasibility and the user experience of a search feature. So at that time, you want users also to work with that prototype, as well as you want to check and see whether the system is able to, if it's performing well. Let's say that you have like 5,000 records or 5,000 products from which users want to search. So you want to check out the feasibility, the experience of how users are going to search, whether it's just by the product name or the description, or whether by tags. You just give something very high level to them, and you want to check out the experience, as well as you want to check out the technical aspects of it, the feasibility, whether how long does it take to load those 5,000 products into the system to display it, how long does it take to retrieve this data when some search field is given. So if you want to check these two, then you can always check with a combination of these two prototypes. So this is about hybrid prototypes. You need to choose the best combination for what you want to validate. Okay, and to end off, there are certain principles behind all these prototypes. The first one is you want to learn at a lower cost than the actual implementation. So why do we build these prototypes? Because we don't want to get into development and then go give it to the user and then they say, no, this is not what we wanted. So that's why we build prototypes, to learn at a lower cost. Okay. The second one is to dive deeper into the nuances rather than later. So when we talk, it's all high level, but when you start building prototypes, when you actually, if you see the feasibility prototype, when you want to check the feasibility, or when you give it to the customer, to work, play around with that mock prototype or with that high level prototype, you get to know the deeper nuances. Or let's say you're even doing a very low fidelity wireframe, you're drawing it with pen, pencil and paper. When you start working and putting that down, you get to understand the navigations, the feasibility of how users are going to work with the application. So it's all about even diving deeper into the nuances. The third one is it helps teams collaborate and build a shared understanding. So more than just people talking without any stage or without any concrete material, this prototype helps teams to come together, collaborate, and get a shared understanding. So it's visual, or they can see something, so therefore they have a good shared understanding and everyone is on the same page. And the last one is create the right level of fidelity prototypes. So as I said, it's left up to you. Always, if possible, go with the low fidelity prototypes, and only when required, go with the high fidelity prototypes. So I know by this video, like, you got some understanding of the different type of prototypes. So next time, depending on your use case and what you want to validate, I hope that you will be able to go with the right prototypes and validate your hypothesis. So if you found this video helpful, please do give this a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, please do subscribe to this channel, and also do share your feedbacks. Thank you.